how to paint with acrylics, how to paint with a knife, using just 3 colors plus white. How to paint with acrylics, how to paint with palette knives, how to mix colors, how to use just 3 colors to create all the other colors you want to use. I'm going to show you on a demo painting and explain to you the entire process. I will talk along. So don't just watch this, create your own artwork. Initially, as a beginner painter, you only need to use 3 colors and you only need to learn 2 things. The 3 colors are the primary red, primary yellow, and primary blue. Plus you need white to regulate how light or dark your colors are. You need to learn how to mix those colors, how those 3 colors behave on your palette, on your canvas, how to mix orange, how to mix purple, how to mix green, a range of greens. All this you learn by just sticking to your initial 3 colors. The other thing, how to use the palette knife. I recommend that you pick up just a watercolor paper. The first one is going to be an absolute mess, and I fully expect you to make a mess. Let's get started. First, I will mix my background color. Finally, this would have been a lot quicker with a sponge. So I got rid of all the whites. I'm going to add the white wherever I need the white as a highlight. I'm going to go around my palette. I started with the orange. I'm going to move on to the red and then my purple here with a little bit of a white as well. So some of the lighter violets are there. You see, those are the colors. Clean the knife and I can make my lovely various greens. Everything from these very strong, bold, yellowy greens all the way to the turquoises. And each one of these will have its own lighter tint as well, with just a tiny bit of a white. So what I'm doing here is creating the exact same colors that I have found on my color wheel. But while this sheet of paper is my reference paper, anytime I'm going to use these 3 colors. In fact, normally I would be writing the exact name of the pigment on the paper. But now I'm going to work with it, so paint with it. And that means that I need a larger quantity available to be picked up with the brush or the knife later on. But at first I'm just going to sketch it out. I will be working with my red here because I know this is a predominantly green landscape, so I'm starting with the red logically. And then I move on to the purples because, yeah, some of those mountains are a little bit purpley on the right hand side where they are in the shadow. But not only that, I have a row of trees there. So I'm just adding a random spattering of trees there. And of course, that's it. I would say this is roughly my plan. Yeah, I think this should be okay. And make sure that at the end you put your brush in the water, otherwise it will cake on, all the paint will cake on to your brush and you can throw it out. I'm gonna pick up a similar mixture than what I have in the back there. So that's going to be my sky. I mix it up first with the knife right here. And I start scraping it on, pasting it on top of, right on top of your sponge mark or brush marks. So the reason why I wasn't precious about those brush marks being exactly perfectly spot on is that everything that I've done so far is going to be covered under layers and layers of palette knife marks. So that's the first layer of the sky. I think I'm happy with that. Then I go on with my violet, like light blue, lilac-y, somewhat purple, but not too strong purple. Let me see, is this the right color? No, I think I would like it lighter. Okay, that should work. So as I said, it's a very easy peasy, just a quick demo for you to get your head around what you can do with a knife. And landscapes are really forgiving, you know, they're not going to complain about their ears, their nose being in the wrong place. If any of those trees become slightly bigger than the original inspiration, then nobody will know. So now I have this. Yep, I might add a little bit more of the red. I just want to have all these gorgeous colors there. That's it. Okay, I wipe the knife and now I move on to proper blues. So these were the trees. Yeah, they disappeared under a couple of knife strokes as I was painting the mountains, but anything that you have painted there, don't worry about it disappearing because it's very easy to put that back. Now I'm going to move on to my sunlit greens, and as I paste it on from the other side, because that's where the sun is coming from, it actually mixes up with the blue that's there. So you don't have to be meticulous about mixing your colors on the palette. It's totally fine to allow some of your colors to mix on the canvas or the paper. And now it's the field. So I started with my sky and then the mountains, then the row of trees, and then I'm coming over onto this big field. And then on top of that, I will be placing my jungle of wildflowers, weeds, whatever is here. So I just pick it up with a bit of white. I want it to be a nice sunlit light green. And I will be adding a bunch of layers of color to this. But I love the red peeking through it all. Now, this is the thing about green landscapes, that if you have a red base underneath it all, then you will find it's a lot easier to get greens that are strong, bold, they really jump off the canvas. Anyway, I'm not right, and I'm comfortable not being right. In fact, this is like totally part of being an artist, that you know, you are keenly aware that you are not right a lot of the time. Now, I try not to add too much, but you see the same blue coming back a little bit in this tiny light turquoise. The exact same blue pigment. It will add cohesion to the whole canvas. You just recycle the same colors. And this is when some of these textures can come to life. I basically moved around my whole palette here. I started now working with my palette knife. I went around again, starting with that peachy pink, and then onto the red, the violet, the darker and the lighter purples, the blue with, you know, with all those trees, and then onto the greens and yellows, and also establishing from the back towards the front, towards what is closer to me. And now I'm ready to pick up some colors again and go back on top of this with some of the orange. So I'm going to mix up a new set, a new batch of oranges for the field. So using up this leftover pink, I'm adding some of the yellow, and that creates a very nice peachy orange color, which is just the exact color of the field around sunset. So I might tame some of the red that is coming through that. And this is when I start working with the knife. You can also scrape with the knife, you can do this. It's lovely because you can create these curvy lines very easily, or even patterns of whatever else you envision. So there's a nice little jungle here that you can paint. And then you can, whatever you scraped off, or add even some extra color there, you can start pasting it on with a knife like this. Now that's more of a muddy grayish color, which is just fine because of course the weeds by the side of the road are very much like that. Some of these turquoisey, deeper turquoisey colors, so I can add some depth. And this is when I would go back with a little bit of white and add some of those little weeds on the side that we always see as we drive past. And it adds not just interest, but something to, you know, it adds scale, because if this is in front of me, this is what at my foot, then you know, you all of a sudden, this helps you decode those big sweeping fields of colors in the back. You assume that that lighter green will be a bunch of these very same flowers a bit further away. Make sure you are not turning this into a wallpaper design. So the trees shouldn't go pum, 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 pum like a fence. Same thing for the field of flowers. Add some inconsistencies. Try to avoid creating like a totally balanced, exactly the same thing on the right hand side, on the left hand side. You see that I even placed the mountains such that nothing would really be placed in dead center vertically or horizontally on the canvas. We all crave symmetry, but dead symmetry is just something that we, it's too much. We don't want that. Let me see a little bit of this deep purple here. Let's mix the right colors. This is a very strong color now. If I place it here, I need to be aware of what it looks like and what it will do to the rest of the artwork. And then I will just add a little bit here. So not everywhere, not all over. One of the tricks is to place darker colors against a field of lighter colors, and lighter colors in a field of darker colors. So cooler colors against warm ones, warm colors against cool ones. And these are the the types of contrasts, color harmonies that that the Impressionists were using when they were painting. So I would say, you know, you can carry on with this. You can add a couple of like totally yellow blobs of colors here, which would make sense with all that yellow filled. Yeah, but basically that's it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to give you a very quick demo of what is possible. If I carried on too long, I would probably ruin the whole thing, which is the way to go, by the way. You will be ruining and you will be overdoing a lot of your artworks, and that's totally fine. It is, in the end, doing a couple of these A3 size studies on a watercolor paper. This is the way to learn. Your very first lesson is how to mix the colors when you paint with acrylics, how these pigments behave, and how to use your palette knife. What can the palette knife do on a painting? How to create a field, how to paint trees with the palette knife, how to paint mountains with the palette knife, how to paint a landscape, how to paint flowers, wildflowers with a palette knife. This is your very first lesson, and when you first start out, please just grab watercolor paper and then just get started with 3 colors and create what you can. You will be messing it up a number of times. There is just no other way of learning how to work with acrylics, how to paint with acrylics, how to paint a landscape with acrylics, how to paint a landscape with acrylics with palette knives. So each one of these is a bit of an obstacle that you have to get over it, and the only way to do that is by trying and figuring it out. Each palette knife works slightly differently. You will handle it differently. I highly recommend that you stick with the one knife like I did here. I painted this whole thing with just the one knife. I'm not saying it's perfect, but this is how I would work if I were out there in the field. So you can get done with a very quick study, very quick sketch on the spot, and then go back home, revisit. By then everything would dry on it, and then you can add a second layer if you want to. You can ruin it. Please do, don't be afraid. If you have that question in you, it's like, okay, what would this look like if I turn the sky into a light green, whatever? Then there is one way to find out. Just pick up your green and start adding it to the sky. Now, if you are ever wondering, this is a good way, by the way, that you just pick up the color, you flip your palette knife over, and you hold it up against wherever you want to place it. And that will tell you, you will be able to judge it, if it's the right color, if it's the right place or not, before smearing it on the canvas or the paper. Try the color against the sky. Like, would I need this? Yes, no. You can add little sweeps of that green. You know, I might actually do that. I don't know. What would it look like? Would it look crazy? Probably, yeah. Okay, let's try. You know, just a little bit of a green there. You see, and all of a sudden, that green turquoise, it communicates with your field. So, if you go up close in the National Gallery, if you go up close to any one of those Impressionist artworks, you will find these specks of colors that are totally out of place, out of whack with reality. Impressionist color theory has very little to do with realistic painting. It is a lot closer to how that place made you feel. And that's what you try to recreate. Recreate the mood of that original inspiration. And you see the red still coming through the whole scene, and it keeps the landscape alive. It keeps the artwork from falling asleep. If it was just a green upon green landscape, you would fall asleep on it. But if you put the complementary color on top of it or behind it, then it works. So this color wheel is also your reference for finding what color would work well. If this is a green landscape, this is going to be my predominant color scheme on the, in the final artwork. These are my main colors that I'm using. Then I'm going on the other end and I'm looking at these on the opposite side as a base. And when you place these colors, the complementary colors, on top of the red, orange, and the lighter version of it, which is that pink or peachy colors, then these greens become like hyper green. They are super green. They are a lot more vivid and strong and vibrant. Now, the issue is you have to first wait for the first layer of red or pink or whatever you're using to dry, because with acrylics, if you mix them up, then you mix them up just like on the palette, they will mix up into mud. But if you wait for the first layer to dry and then you place the second one in a totally different layer, and it stands out against the background peeks through amongst those palette knife marks, then that's when the magic happens. That's when the Impressionist magic happens. With all these broken colors, vibrant colors, expressive colors. So that's it for today. I'm going to upload a couple of these. Please comment below how you liked it. If you have any questions about colors, just let me know.